Today we're talking about the easiest Hoya in my collection and how it never stops blooming, the Hoya Pubicalyx Splash. This is pretty much a very common Hoya, and I honestly don't think enough people grow it anymore. Maybe it's grown out of your collection or it's a little bit too boring, but this plant has been with me for 3.5 years. It is the easiest, most trouble-free Hoya I have. And if you know what's going on in my collection right now, I am overcoming Hoya root rot, and this one did not have any rot in it. It is just have always done well. I would absolutely recommend this plant to a beginner, even a seasoned collector who say has grown out of it or grown out of love with it. Bring it back in your collection because the blooms are so pretty. Adapts very well to normal home conditions. I have had this plant for 3.5 years, and if you know how I live in the Midwest where the winters here are pretty cold, and I have no trouble with this plant even during winter. This plant grows pretty fast once it's established. I would say you don't really have to wait long for blooms, even though I did wait a while. I did get blooms because I gave it some conditions to probably force it to bloom. We'll talk about that later, but the blooms in itself is very, very rewarding. Oh, I don't want to hit the blooms. I am sorry. We'll say the blooms are very, very fragrant within the first 2 days. The blooms on this one opened 2 days ago and I'm sleeping. I can smell the Hoya bloom in the bedroom, even at the sliding glass door in the kitchen. Like, it's so far from the plant room. I was able to smell the blooms early in the morning. This was not the first Hoya that bloomed for me, but once this one bloomed, I fell in love with it even more, and I was not going to get rid of it because of how big it is, but it just wasn't my favorite Hoya. But once it bloomed, it became my favorite. The blooms is like really dark purple, and that's why I just love it so much. The other, like the Carnosa blooms, are light pink, and this one just gives a big pop of color in the plant room. This particular Hoya comes in multiple varieties. I'm not going to list them all off, but there's so much other varieties of the Pubicalyx. I only have 2 varieties. I have the Pubicalyx Splash, and I have a Pubicalyx Royal Hawaiian that's still a starter plant, and I'm waiting for that one to get more established. I did have some lightening of the leaves last year. In my research, I actually think sometimes you get lightening of the leaves because it is in too much bright light. It is in a west window, so maybe it was getting too much from that west window, but I pulled it back. Usually if a plant has, correct me if I'm wrong, if a plant has gotten bleached from the sun, the color just doesn't come back. But I pulled it back from the light and I started fertilizing a little bit more, and the color of the light green turned a little darker. So that tells me it wasn't like a light issue. Usually it's a nitrogen issue. That's what I will say. Sometimes the bleaching of the leaves can be too much light, but sometimes it's nutrient. The more light this plant receives, the splashier it does get. This particular one is not a cold loving Hoya. It's a warm tolerant Hoya. I will say I did push it to its limit last year when we had a cold spring. Changes like that can stress the plant out, and I kind of use it for my advantage. I shortened the day length of light from 14 hours to 12 hours, and I was putting it in a closet in the darkness and then bringing it out. Saw this idea from Doug Chamberlain, who did a lot of light manipulation to cause his Hoya to bloom, and it worked for this one. And I would say that experiment helped me understand a lot of Hoyas differently, because I think sometimes plants actually need a winter. I'm not saying like your plant needs to be like cold. Shortening day length and adding day length can help a Hoya to bloom. We're going to be doing a little bit more experimentation of that this year on the channel, so stick around for that. When I first got this plant, it was very tiny. I was a starter plant, and back then it was in an east window, so it stayed in an east window for about a year and a half, I would say. And then when we moved into this house, I got a west window plant room. Then it moved to the west window. Let me tell you, the west window, so much foliage exploded. I even think like last year it was still giving me more foliage and tendrils, really doing well. And it's now that since spring started, I have a lot of extra leaves now on the plant. You know, a Hoya like this can get very top heavy, so having it in heavier pot definitely helps. It is on a trellis, and this trellis is not a plastic one. It is a metal trellis where it's giving it a little bit more sturdiness as well. I don't really like the plastic trellis for that. I do like a little bit more like a bamboo trellis or a metal trellis. I like that better for Hoyas. Just because you're going to continue wrapping the plant and it's going to get heavy. Okay, so thinking back what the plant looked like a year and a half ago, I have some B-roll of that, I think. And then comparing it to now, yeah, there's just west window light is magic, especially during the golden hour. It's just so nice. Watering this plant, I check this plant every week for watering. If I see that the plant is still a little moist, I don't water it. If I notice that it's dry, I will water. So today is watering day for my plants. I actually started watering yesterday, and this one have not gotten water yet. I am still watering. It actually takes me a few days to water because to water all the plants at one time can take like 4 hours. My larger Hoyas are getting watered today. And this one actually does need water because it's I don't want to mess with the pot so much. It's fully dried, and I actually need to give this an up pot. I will say because of how much it doesn't have a lot of soil. I will probably give it a repot in summer. Since it's in a west window during spring and especially summer, it dries out pretty quickly. Comparing to some Hoyas, I find this one very, very forgiving. Like this pot is completely dry and it's doing fine. I don't want to go too long with not watering because then you risk dry rot. You don't want dry rot because that is also bad. Not as bad as wet rot. And if you know me, I am an underwaterer. Some people are overwaterers. I'm definitely an underwaterer because yesterday started watering and then I got distracted with other tasks and said I would come back to it today. I refilled my water bottles and I'm going to come back to it today. But if we have a little incident with our sick pup, watering is going to get pushed back again another day. It is in a chunky soil mix. There's actually pumice, no perlite, pumice, orchid bark, and Fox Farm soil. Like I said earlier, it's going to get a repot in summer, get a little bit more soil, kind of replenish nutrients in the pot. One of the things that I've learned from growing in a garden is that every year you have to replenish the soil in a garden. So you actually do have to do a little soil replenishment in a plant pot. A plant can sit in the same substrate for 20 years. I say that because I know some people who've had inherited plants that were given to them by relatives and they've never repotted the plant. If soil is working for you, don't mess with it. If LECA is working for you, don't mess with that either. If pond is working for you, I say don't mess with it. There are some plants in my plant room that soil just was not working for anymore and I switched it, and it's kind of an experimentation to see how it does. There's some of my Hoyas that's taken so well to LECA and pond and I'm shocked by it. There are some that just did not like pond or even LECA. They're rejecting it completely. So experiment and see what works for you. But if it doesn't, if you don't have a problem with the substrate, don't even touch it. I fertilize this plant with every watering. I don't use the full strength. I use Foliage Pro. And during a blooming, I mean, this plant is blooming quite a lot right now. it is going to get a stronger dose of fertilizer. All my blooming Hoyas are getting a little stronger fertilizer, and I spray it as well with an orchid spray. An orchid sprayer on the foliage, because sometimes plant can uptake nutrients better on the leaves. I will reference where I heard that, so don't come for me. All my references will be in the description below. The biggest thing that helped my Hoyas to bloom was light manipulation. So I triggered the blooms last year by shortening the day length and giving it 12 hours of day, 12 hours of darkness. It did trigger blooms for me. And once after 30 days, I did get a growing peduncle, and I brought it back into the light for 14 hours of light. That is something that I think Hoyas really appreciate, just a shortening of light or even more light. Doug Chamberlain have talked about this. I will also reference that video that he did to his Hoyas. Sometimes when you change something up on a plant, it will, I guess it causes stress on the plant, and maybe it would bloom, or on the Hoya, maybe it would bloom. Don't think the plant was so stressed that it was gonna die, but it did produce a peduncle, and then I started fertilizing it more. The one thing I will say is, once you get blooms on your Hoyas, it's going to keep blooming. This is not going to stop. For those who live like in Florida, it'll probably bloom all year round. But for me in the Midwest, it definitely stops at winter. There are some Hoyas that bloom during the winter months that give me my bloom reward even that time. But these warmer loving Hoyas don't bloom for me during winter at all. So spring, summer, fall, I will get bloom. It is not going to stop. Okay, every peduncle that you see on this Hoya, I have not counted the peduncles. Let's count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 peduncles, and every one of those peduncles, they're on a tendril. They are not on a stem with a bunch of leaves. I don't recommend ever cutting off the tendril of your plant. Now, if a tendril looks a little like this, so like right here at the tip, it's drying up and dying, I will cut till right here. I will cut that. That is like the only thing of the tendril I will cut. I do not cut the tendril off of my Hoyas, because I don't want to miss a bloom. I don't want to miss potential bloom. I know a lot of people do cut it off so that they can get more foliage. Well, why would you do that if you can get blooms? I love the blooms. I love Hoya blooms. This is kind of my quick experience with this plant. I do have some resources of things that I've talked about, like nutrient in the leaves, talk about light manipulation. All that stuff will be in the description for your pleasure of reading and researching. Make things easier for you so you don't have to go on the hunt for it. It is right there. I will always do that whenever I do a care video. I will share resources of where I get some of my information. I know I probably missed a few things talking about this plant. Do you have any questions or want me to talk about something else that I missed? I will probably do a part 2. Again, an underrated common Hoya is just still worth it, like those other rare Hoyas out there. There's something special about a common plant, and it's one of my favorites. I love it. Oh, before I go, no, hold on. I want to share the bloom fragrant, sorry. Okay, so the scent of this Hoya for the first 2 days smells like just a really heavy scented lilac flower, but after the 2 days fades, it smells like what a new car smell would smell like. So I smelled it again today. It doesn't smell great. It does not. Oh, don't just go up to the plant and sniff it. Like morning and evening, Hoya blooms are so fragrant. In the morning, it smells really, really good from very far away. But if you come close to it, don't do it. But still do it, because they're always worth a sniff. My Hoya Mathilde is going to flower, and that one, for those who know, that one has a particular smell, and I cannot wait to smell it. I don't care if it stinks. I don't care. I am actually working on a bloom smell sheet on my Patreon. It's gonna be released next month, and I'm very excited. If you need a resource of what a Hoya would smell like, I'm collecting data and I will release it next month. I'm excited for that. It's going to be a living document that's going to be ever changing, because as I get information from people and I get my own information from smelling Hoya blooms, that document will be living in my Patreon. Thank you so much for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day, and always remember, you are loved. You got featured today. Yeah, and you also need a water. So I guess you worked for your water today. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is why I will never cut off tendrils. Bye.